This is about defending democracy. This is no longer Democrats versus Republicans. What do you want your kids to believe in? There must be give and take.
This is White Flag with Joe Walsh.
Hey, former Congressman Joe Walsh. This is White Flag with Joe Walsh. Hope you've had a good week. You know the deal here, the drill here. I have zero interest in speaking with anybody who thinks like me. That's boring, and I don't think the country needs it. I love to speak with people who are not me, who think differently than me, who are different than me. That's the whole point of White Flag with Joe Walsh, is to we don't do enough of that in this country. Marcus Flowers, who I've gotten to know here recently, and I will explain why and how I've gotten to know Marcus Flowers recently. I knew him from afar because you probably recognize this name. Marcus is the great warrior and patriot who did a tough battle, tough mission, took on Marjorie Taylor Greene a couple years ago down in the northwest corner of Georgia. Marcus is a longtime Army veteran. He's served this country. He's a Democrat. I'm not. He's black. I'm not. But man, I'm a big fan of his. Marcus, welcome, my friend.
Joe, thank you for having me on, brother.
Before we get into what brought us together, and namely this organization called Mission Democracy that I want everybody to know about, there are so many questions I wanted to ask you. As you look back now, taking on Marjorie Taylor Greene, as you look back on it now, give me the good, the bad, and the ugly about that. Like, as you look back on it now, let's start with the good. What was the best aspect as far as you look at it in doing that?
You know, the best thing that I took from stepping out of my comfort zone, which, I'd always been an apolitical guy, served the country for almost 30 years.
This was your very first run.
The very first foray into politics, if
Yeah.
you will, period. Like I said, apolitical guy, served the country for almost 30 years as a soldier, defense contractor, and government official, stayed out of politics. The mission was always what was important to me, and the mission was the American people, supporting and defending the Constitution. But what I found great about being out on the campaign trail was connecting with the people here of Northwest Georgia.
Yeah.
And, even though the outcome wasn't what I wanted it to be and many of us wanted to be, it reaffirmed for me that, most people are good. The people of Northwest Georgia are who I thought they were.
Yeah.
Kind, caring, generous people, the people that'll wave to you, even if they don't know you, driving down the road or walking down the road. That's who they are at their core. Now, let me skip right to the ugly of it.
Get to the ugly.
The ugly of it is that I did realize also that a large portion, well, not a large portion, but a not insignificant portion of our population has been radicalized by the propaganda that comes out of places like Russia and Iran, foreign state actors, and, actors here in our country as well.
Yeah.
We're repeating those, talking points, whether it's, some news organizations or members of Congress or local elected leaders repeating those talking points, and it's radicalizing people.
And you heard, Marcus, as you were on the campaign trail against Marjorie Taylor Greene a couple years ago, and again, everybody listening should understand that district in Northwest Georgia is one of the most Republican districts in the country. You heard plenty of this conspiracy-laden bullcrap that a lot of these foreign and domestic actors put out from real, actual voters. You heard a lot of it.
Absolutely. Just a lot of it. And one of the things that frustrated my campaign so much, the guys who were, taking me out on the trail, is that I would listen to people. I would meet them where they were. I'd sit there and I'd listen to it. Because how else are you going to understand what it is that you're dealing with unless you listen to people? Try to meet them where they are and then try to pull them to where you are. Now, we had plenty of success there. We got more votes in that district and closed the gap there by 10 points than any other Democrat ever running in Northwest Georgia. So, some
Um,
success.
it's Marcus. It's really interesting. You know that I come from that world. I come from MAGA. They used to be my peeps, and I talk to them a lot. I still talk to them every day. And you're right. What I've found, and I appreciate that about you, because I think you and I are alike. I like engaging with them as respectfully as you can.
Right.
And I found that if you kind of drill down on a lie or some disinformation that they believe in, and you just keep respectfully pushing them on it, eventually they really can't defend it. I don't, and you would, and I like that you'd engage with these folks, wouldn't you?
I wouldn't. And you see that you didn't have to, dig that far beneath the surface to kind of get the wheels turning a little bit.
Yeah.
And I had plenty of Republicans, lifelong Republicans, never voted for a Democrat after that tactic, saying, I'm going to vote for you the first time because, we talked about what was important, what it is that's really important to you.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm trying to do for our community. Here's what I'm trying to do for our country. And it was mostly about saving our democracy and getting our district the things that they needed, the money that we needed for infrastructure, housing, school, the things that were important, reminding them of that, and not all of the distractions that are out there. We had a bit of success here, but as you know, it's a tough district, and you're not going to move all of those. Some of the people are just never going to vote for a Democrat because that's where we are in our politics and our tribal foxholes, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just so entrenched in tribalism that you're not going to move those. But we played enough there in the margins to make a difference. There are a lot of reasonable people out there, independents and call them moderate Republicans, who were receptive to that. So I found some success there, even though we didn't win the election. There was lessons to be learned there.
No, I agree, and you and I'll get into this in a minute. Like we may disagree on. I think it's important to have a challenger in every race. I think when it comes to where we put our resources, you got to put your resources into where you can win. But Marcus, do you think?
Let me touch that a little bit.
Touch that.
Democracy
Respond to that.
Demand competition. That's how you get true leaders. Is that they have to defend their positions, that they have to rely on their record of success and what they're doing for their constituency.
Yeah.
So democracy always demands competition, whether it's for me anyway, in my opinion, whether it's a winnable race or not, quote unquote, because of gerrymandering, how these districts are drawn. Democracy does demand competition. And so Congress belongs to everybody. So you got to have a challenger out there who's willing to take on the tough fights, have those tough conversations with people who may not agree with them politically or on issues, but you got to have those honest conversations. That's what democracy demands.
No, and well said, Marcus, and I agree with that. Every member of Congress, and I say this as a former member, should always have to face the voters every 2 years and compete to keep that seat, no doubt. You're a Democrat. I'm not. My former political party has become radicalized. I don't want them to control the House. So if I had a lot of money and all I wanted was Democrats to take back the House, I probably wouldn't put a lot of money into whoever's going to challenge Marjorie. I'd put it into races that will get me the House. But I agree with your bigger point that even Marjorie Taylor Greene every 2 years should have a challenger. I've never asked you this in the time we've known each other. Why are you a Democrat? What made you become a Democrat?
When I was really looking at, where I stood politically, coming from the world that I come from, having always been apolitical, having served under every president since Clinton and throughout the Trump years, my loyalties lied with the Constitution, not with a man, not with a president, not with a party. But when I had to seriously sit down and think about it, when I saw what happened on January 6th and Marjorie Taylor Greene's part in it, I knew I didn't want to be any part of what it was that she and Trump was representing
Let
at
me
the end of
stop
the
you.
day.
Let me stop you right there, Marcus. That's interesting. And just expand on that because I think I've read this about you. January 6th profoundly impacted your thinking into getting into the political world, correct?
No, absolutely. It's the day that I made the decision to resign my post as a government official and run for Congress against Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'd been watching the things that she'd been doing. I'd watched her run basically unopposed in the previous election. I'd reached out to her and said, "Hey, you got to walk some of these things back. This isn't who we are." You know, I watched conspiracy theories grow. I watch, the anger and the rage and the resentment and the division just keep growing. And, you know, for better or worse, it was all coming from one side of the house politically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of what moved me to, be a Democrat and, come out. My views align with, when it comes to things like civil rights. John Lewis, was my idol. I'm from Troy, Alabama, originally, the birthplace of John Lewis. I've always looked up to him. So, you know,
It's
voting rights when it comes to that, that's kind of what moved me to be a Democrat, even though I'd never been affiliated with a party, prior to that. So, that's kind of where I was. That's kind of where, I felt comfortable as far as the issues. Now, I
did
also
you
consider myself a blue dog Democrat, so I'm a moderate. I believe that, this country needs two strong parties rooted in reality and negotiating in good faith, which is the way I always got things done in my time as a soldier, defense contractor, and government official. You know, even though we never talked politics or party or anything, but you had people from all different walks of life working together, negotiating in good faith, debating in good faith on facts to get the job done. And that's what I think we need more of in Congress. Us
it's
debating in good faith. We have to have our system depends on having two parties
yeah.
who are willing to do that.
It's a good answer, Marcus, and I'm glad you expanded upon it. Because I was hoping your answer wasn't just how fucking batshit crazy my former party has become. That's why you became a Democrat. Like I've been a Republican my whole life. I left 3.5 years ago because of how that party became, and because and that's all true. But then you could have decided, well, hell, I'm going to be a moderate Republican and challenge Marjorie in a primary. I'm going to be a good blue dog moderate Republican. You never thought about that, though, did you?
Well, I had that conversation with a few of my friends. Again, I'm from Alabama, and a lot of my friends, you know,
Yeah,
rock rib Republicans, and
yeah.
they were like, "Well, Marcus, you should run as a Republican. You'd have a better chance in that district." So I got to be who I am. I gotta do what
Yes.
feels right. I have to give people me authentically, give them my authentic self. I have to be willing to step outside of my comfort zone and say who I am. This is what I believe, and I know we can agree on most things. We're not going to agree on everything. Democracy doesn't require that. It doesn't require us to agree on every simple
No,
thing. The important things.
that's what's beautiful, Marcus, is like if you and I, and we've never had this discussion, if you and I sat down and we listed the top 20 policy issues and you and I went through them one by one, we'd disagree. You and I would disagree on most of the policy issues. That's what's so cool about it. And
Right.
then you and I could have really interesting conversations about all of them. I appreciate that about you, though, that you are a moderate, a blue dog, kind of a centrist Democrat. Two questions before we get into mission democracy. Do you ever worry that the Democratic Party is moving too far left? Do you think about that kind of thing?
I mean, I do think about that, and that's part of the problem. We've got our parties moving further and further apart on the issues that matter for the American people. Again, it's always been my belief that you meet people where they are
Yeah.
and you have the conversation. If you're not negotiating on behalf of the American people, then what are you negotiating about? If you're not negotiating for the good of the people in your district, for the good of the country, what are you doing? Is this just a conspiracy for power? Because that's what I see, and I don't want to do the both sides thing, but
Well, but
you
there's,
see it.
yeah,
You can
absolutely.
see it playing out every day. But I do believe that there are enough people there in Congress. Some of them don't have the bravery to step up and say it publicly.
Yeah.
But there are enough people there who are willing to sit down and do the tough thing and talk and try and come up with the best solutions. We got to see more of that. We got to see more of the bravery for those people to speak up and speak out and be loud, be louder than that minority that's so loud right now.
So that's the question, Marcus. That's the question. And by the way, you are a throwback. I'm older than you, but you're right. You are a throwback to a time where the parties disagreed, but they disagreed about issues. They both believed in democracy, and they fought about and argued about issues. That kind of time, and generally you try to reach some common ground. I don't believe, and I want your opinion on this. Yes, the Democrats have their issues, and they've got their folks on the far left and we overlook that because the Republicans and the MAGA right that we're going to get into is so off the charts right now. And I guess here's a good segue then into mission democracy. As I say this as a former Republican and a former MAGA, I don't believe MAGA is a minority in the Republican Party anymore. I think it's the majority. And I certainly think it's the animating force in that party. What's your thought?
I would agree in so much as it's the animating force in the party. Now, if you call the primary voters,
The base.
the base, whatever you want to call them, they're calling the shots.
Yeah.
Because they are picking who the next candidate is going to be. Are the primary voters the majority of the party? I don't think so.
Oh, but a big chunk. A big
chunk
chunk.
of them are. A big chunk of them are.
They're certainly the majority in a primary.
But definitely in a primary.
Yeah.
But here's what I think. I think that part of the party has instilled a bit of fear in the rest of the party who want to belong, who want a home. But some of the things they just can't stomach, so they go along with it. That fear is real. I've seen it play out day in day. I've had conversations with politicians, from all over the place. The fear is real, and they really don't know what to do. One of the things I learned in the military is you can't be ruled by fear at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You've got to be brave. You got to stand up for what you truly believe in. Be loud and proud about it. And if you get the backlash, that comes with the territory.
Well, we're not there yet, and I think, Marcus, you're right. That's what has to happen. But when people like me and Adam Kinzinger stood up in the public square and were brave and said no, nobody followed, and so it's going to take a few more, and then a few more, and then a few more.
But that's how it begins, Joe.
That's how it begins.
Yeah. People like you, people like Adam, Liz Cheney.
Yeah.
It only takes a few.
Yeah.
The rest will follow, and that's what we're going to keep working on, is getting people to stand up, getting people to do the right thing and say the right thing because they know it's right in their hearts, and push back against the extremism.
That then leads to what brought Democrat Marcus Flowers and now homeless Joe Walsh, politically homeless Joe Walsh, together. This organization called Mission Democracy, Marcus, that you founded. I'll tee it up, and then I want you to explain it to our audience. The reason I joined on board is because I believe MAGA right now is an existential threat. The MAGA movement, the MAGA philosophy to our democracy. I believe it has become radicalized, and it is a fascist thing now. And I think it has to be stopped. And I think the only way to stop it is to very publicly call it out for what it is. Mission democracy. Explain what you want to achieve with this, my friend.
Well, Joe, you pretty much summed it up in the tease right there, because at the end of the day, when I left the campaign trail, I knew I wanted to continue fighting. So
Yeah.
one of the big things I talked about on the campaign trail is misinformation, disinformation, radicalization, fascism, and how a lot of Americans are, I keep saying a lot, a not insignificant portion of Americans have been radicalized by this misinformation and disinformation that's
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
And how we have these leaders, and I won't say any names right now, who are, flirting with authoritarianism and fascism. We got to push back against that, because I think a lot of people don't realize what it is that they're, the trap that they're falling into. So our goal is to,
Marcus, that's such an important point, and I'm so glad you said that. Like, I accused MAGA, and I come from MAGA, of being a fascist movement. A lot of people don't know what fascism is, but you just said authoritarianism. I mean, continue. This is scary shit.
it really is. I mean, and I spent a decade in combat zones, in places where you've seen over the course of history what that did to these places. And I mean,
Yeah.
I've been to 46 different countries across the globe now, and been in some of the worst places you can imagine with my service to the country. And I realized the dangers in those authoritarians, those strong men, and how it begins, and how people are sucked into it, not realizing where it goes.
Hey, Marcus,
You would break the-
based on your
Right.
experience, around the world, how much of it does begin kind of with a personality cult, an authoritarian personality cult?
No, probably all of it. I don't want to, overstate it here, but probably all of it.
Wow.
You know, and we've got some historians who could probably answer that question
Yeah.
a lot better than I can. But I would say it probably all began with. I mean, if you look at
Wow.
Hitler, if you look at Hirohito, Mussolini,
Yeah.
personalities, strong men, came in saying the right things
Yeah.
that got people's attention, and next thing you know, they're committing atrocities.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
So, I would say probably close to all of it. Um, and my goal with this was to educate people, not to preach to the choir, because I can talk to Democrats all day long
Yeah.
about, what it is that's, ailing this country, and I can, you know, get them to agree quite easily. But talking to people, independents, and there are more independents now than anything, and
Yeah.
Republicans who, kind of see that things are not as they should be,
Yeah.
so to speak, and kind of educate them of the dangers there and how to speak up. So, and it is also to target these extremists, the worst of the worst out there. And if you can't vote against them, help demote them. Help get them out of office. It's time for true and real leadership. That was my goal behind Mission Democracy.
Well, and Marcus, it's an important goal, and part of what really attracted me to it is, and I like a good fight, and this is a very aggressive thing that needs to be done.
Joe, it's the fight of our lifetime right now.
Bingo.
This
Bingo.
is what it is.
And I give, and this organization, Mission Democracy, by the way, everybody listening, missiondemocracy.org is the website, missiondemocracy.org. Marcus will tell you how you can sign up and help and do all of that. But I don't know of any other group out there right now that is very publicly taking on MAGA and calling MAGA out for what it is and what it does.
Right.
It's you're taking the fight right to them, and look, that's a difficult thing to do, calling them out. That really appealed to me because I think it needs to be done.
What absolutely needs to be done. I mean, a lot of the organizations are going to go for the low hanging fruit. Trump, he is a low hanging fruit. He's the one out, loud and proud in front of it, pushing the party
Bigger than Trump,
further and
yeah.
further to the right, closer and closer to, authoritarianism, fascism. It's easy, but there are a lot of other voices out there who are echoing what he's saying,
Yes.
and we have to really drill down in this cycle. We have to really drill down and start speaking to people and showing them what is at stake, and that's what this organization is dedicated to do.
Going after, exactly right. Explaining and educating Americans on what this MAGA movement is doing. They're banning books. They're embracing authoritarianism. They're meeting with anti-Semites. We can
Taking
go.
away women's rights.
They're rewriting history. We can go
Rewriting
go down examples of all of these anti-democratic things they're doing, and fascism is anti-democratic, to really wake up independents and, as you said, Marcus, soft Republicans, leaning Republicans who understand this is no longer normal Democrat versus Republican stuff anymore. This is different.
It's an existential threat to our democracy, to the republic. It's a threat. Because guess what? We can argue about policies all day, but if we break this democracy, American democracy, it's not going to matter our differences on policies. It's not going to matter, how we feel about Social Security or Medicare or
Yeah.
abortion or any other policy. We're going to have a king instead of the people deciding
Yeah.
what it is
Yeah.
that they want and how they want to be governed.
Are you, Marcus? I say this as a former Republican and as a former MAGA. There are times that even I'm blown away by the fact that the base of one of our two major political parties has become radicalized and is anti-democracy. You served this country for so long. Are you ever blown away by that? By the state of one of our two major political parties right now?
It's a little. The word I'm looking for kind of eludes me, but
Yeah.
we'll use "blown away" for lack of a better word. But at the same time, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. I get that there's so much division out there. That there's so much.
Yeah.
The zone has been flooded so much with misinformation and disinformation. People aren't sure what to believe. I get that. But that doesn't mean I'm writing those people off.
Important point.
We're Americans, we're brothers and sisters. At the end of the day, we can't write each other off. We can't just sit in our silos and preach to our echo chambers. We've got to talk to each other. Democracy demands it. It demands it.
I love you, my brother. That's such an important point. Mission Democracy is an organization that's not going after MAGA voters. We're going after this MAGA philosophy, this MAGA mindset that is pushing this anti-democratic shit. I try to reach MAGA voters every single week. And even though, correct me if I'm wrong, Marcus, even though Mission Democracy is trying to reach a lot of those independents and soft Republicans to help them understand what's at stake, man, we want two viable parties and we want MAGA voters to wake up.
Yes. We got to have it. I mean, we have to have enough people in this cycle to say, you know what, I'm out. Kind of like Lindsey Graham said right after January 6th.
Yeah.
Count me out.
Count me
That's
out.
enough of it. And we don't need all of them to do that and say that. but we need enough of them to say that.
Yeah.
In the margins, we need enough independents, enough reasonable, normal, what I call normal Republicans to say, okay, that's not what I want for our country. Here's what we've got to do. We've got to hand these guys defeats time and time again until they stop flirting with fascism.
So Mission Democracy, missiondemocracy.org, is an organization that this election cycle is going to very publicly call out the MAGA philosophy for what it is. We're going to put that word fascist out there and show what it is. And we're going to try to wake folks up to what's at stake. Marcus, what can people listening to us right now do if they want to help Mission Democracy and get involved and support what we're up to?
Like you said, right now, the best thing to do is go to www.missiondemocracy.org, sign up for our newsletter,
Great.
Democracy Defender. Sign up for it. We'll be putting information out as to where we're going to be, what we're going to be doing, as we get further into the cycle, what candidates we're going to be supporting, what states we're going to be showing up in.
Yeah.
Making ads and talking to the people that we need to talk to get us where we need to be as a country. And this is what I call that work where it's very specialized and specific. We have to drill down in order to save democracy.
Everybody listening, missiondemocracy.org. Marcus just spelled out the first step, and it's a good first step. Sign up for our newsletter. That'll hone you in and get you involved in everything we're doing. Missiondemocracy.org. Go there, sign up for the newsletter. By the way, we put out, Mission Democracy this past week, put out a great new ad that went viral and got a lot of attention. Talking about showing some of this fascist activity of banning books and rewriting history and anti-Semitism and all the rest. Missiondemocracy.org. Marcus, you and I may disagree on this. I do believe there are more of us than them. I do believe there are more people in this country still who believe in democracy.
Absolutely.
than but I don't think it's like an 80-20, 70-30 thing. I think the MAGA movement is bigger than America thinks. But disagree with me if you want. Where are you on that?
Let me just say, if you're right on those numbers, and it's not where I think it is, a not insignificant portion. And when I say not insignificant, I'm gonna assign a number to that. I'm gonna say 30%. Not insignificant.
Hardcore MAGA.
Hardcore MAGA.
Okay, for the record, and then I'll let you continue. I'm going to say, I'm going to play with it a little bit. I'm going to say 45% are hardcore MAGA or MAGA adjacent. Your turn.
Okay, and that kind of falls into line with what I say. There's people who are out there who are afraid.
Yes.
Who want a home.
Yes.
So you can assign that extra 15%. But that's what I think of those people, but who may be willing to speak up if given the right information, if given a place to where they can feel safe to say, hey, this isn't right. So not a significant portion, yeah, but there are enough of us. There are more of us. The important thing you said is there are more of us than them.
Yes.
There are. That's the important thing. There are more of us who believe in this country and want to see it be its best self, want to see us live up to our highest ideals. I truly believe that is the case. So we have to work.
And Marcus, we close with this. I don't know of another effort or mission that could bring a Southern Democrat like you and a former Tea Party congressman like me together to lock arms and wage war. And that's to me, that's the beauty about Mission Democracy is we're going after extremism views and fascism, and we're defending democracy. And it brought two disparate people like you and I together. There are more of us than them. Everybody, please go to missiondemocracy.org. sign up for our newsletter, missiondemocracy.org. Sign up for the newsletter. Marcus, I'm drawing a blank on Twitter. What's Mission Democracy on Twitter? I'm drawing a blank right now.
It's at Mission MSSN Democracy.
Got it. At MSSN Democracy. Follow Mission Democracy on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. They're everywhere. But again, there are more of us than them. But if the us doesn't all come together this cycle, some bad stuff might happen. So missiondemocracy.org. Join us in this mission. It ain't going to be easy because we're gonna take the fight right to them. Marcus, thank you, my friend. I'll give you the final word, but I'm going to ask you. Can I ask you I'm going to ask you a tough question. You can take the fifth. You don't have to answer.
Go ahead.
I say this as a former member of Congress. I think Congress would benefit from having someone like you there, someone interested in bringing people together and working across the aisle and all of that. Does Marcus Brown ever think about running for office again?
I mean, it's something that I've thought about. Right now I'm going to focus on this mission.
Marcus Flowers, by the way. I think
Marcus,
I said.
We all
No, I think, it's funny. I think I said Marcus Brown, who's a very good friend of mine back in Chicago, who works with me on a lot of things. So I'm going to restate that. Does Marcus Flowers ever think about running for public office again?
Again, it's something that I've thought about, but right now I'm going to focus on the mission as it stands right now, and that mission is democracy and making sure that we keep it together in 2024.
Good answer. Good real answer, genuine answer, and a good politician's answer, because you definitely...
I'm learning. It's taken a couple of years.
Hey, Marcus Flowers, everybody. Thank you, Marcus, for what you do. Most importantly, everybody listening to us, missiondemocracy.org. These are the times we're in. This is our fight right now. We're not... We can debate and fight about border policy and healthcare policy and all the rest down the road here pretty soon. But right now it's all about defending democracy and calling out this movement that is attacking democracy, MAGA, a movement I come from. missiondemocracy.org. Go there, sign up for the newsletter. Marcus, my friend, thank you.
Joe, God bless you, brother. Thank you.
Right back at you.
Thank you for listening. Remember to listen, share, and follow White Flag with Joe Walsh on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and everywhere great podcasts are found. And be sure to leave a 5-star review. This has been White Flag with Joe Walsh.